Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be looking at Joss Whedon's big open letter, I guess. His first ever statements on everything that occurred. His sort of sit-down interview that he had with like the New York something. Just some journalist. Nothing really much to go into in terms of who they are. There's a lot of pages before we get to this specific point where he's talking about Zack Snyder and the Justice League, right? And just as an FYI, a lot of it is like a slow meandering path to paint him as a bit of a victim. It's interesting. Talks about his mother and why he became a feminist and all this kind of stuff. I did record some of that, but I don't think there's much relevance to discuss it, because also I don't want to paint him as a victim, because I don't think he is a victim, and his upbringing is kind of wholly irrelevant, basically. I want to just stick to this specific element of cancel culture, what he's claiming to be cancel culture, FYI, not me. I'm literally looking at it. But as the culture around him continued to change, certain fans began to see Whedon's work through a more critical lens. Like proper, he's like, ooh, cancel culture. So I want to discuss all of that and then his retorts and stuff. This is the first time he's ever said anything, and I do think the timing's interesting. Like Ben Affleck recently came out and said, yeah, it was the worst, terrible, hated my life. And then you'd also had the reveal of Leslie Grace as Batgirl, which he was supposed to be directing that as well. So it's interesting timing, and so I thought we'd dive into it. I was going to cover it last night, but things got a bit behind, do a stream and all that kind of stuff, and I thought we'd just do a long form video on this instead. So let's take a look, ladies and gents. Just side note, if you're new here, please do hit subscribe and please do give the video a like. And if you do want, I've got a second channel. It's in the description box. You might like it. It's called Car Nonsense, bit of vlogs, bit of cars. It's a cool channel. Check it out. Anyway, so this is well into the interview, and a lot of it is literally deifying him as someone who, you know, is amazing as a writer and all this kind of stuff. And then it goes on to state, but as the culture around him continued to change, certain fans began to see Whedon's work through a more critical lens, discerning an attitude towards women that seemed unenlightened by the standards of the female-centered shows and movies his success had in some cases helped spawn. In 2017, the same year, Cole published her letter. An old Wonder Woman screenplay he had written surfaced online. Compared with the Wonder Woman movie Patty Jenkins had recently directed, his version struck some readers as creepy and sexist, with passages that seemed to linger gratuitously on the Amazon sex appeal. You cannot tell me Joss Whedon didn't write the original Wonder Woman script while furiously cranking his hog, one woman had tweeted. So again, really painting him out to be a bit of a victim here with people's opinions and stuff. And I don't, you know, I'm not going to placate to that. But one thing I would always say as well, women, men, whoever, never trust a male feminist, alright? They're 9 times out of 10, they're all dogs. Always trust, more so over a male feminist, a dude that just happily sits there and says, yeah, I absolutely love pork swording a pasty, right? I love smashing pasty. 100% much more believable, much more honest, and yeah, probably not, you know, deceptive and dubious in trying to conceal his true opinions on things. So just wanted to say that. That's actually stuff I said in my previous video, which I will not release because it just kind of rambled on about nonsense. Anyway, that year Whedon took a job doing rewrites for the Warner Brothers film Justice League. So here we go into the main meat of this. A DC property directed by Zack Snyder. For two white men in their 50s making comic book flicks, he and Snyder could hardly have been less creatively or philosophically aligned. While Whedon's superhero epics were leavened by irony and wordplay, Snyder's were brooding and self-important with a visual style that combined the artificiality, and then I've got the artificiality of, this is where I've got to scroll through it all again now. Yeah, right, here we go. Sorry, ladies and gents. It's all across a series of tweets. I do apologise. It's a bit of a pain in the ass. Also, what this article, you know, this interview doesn't know, and it really is important just if we're talking about a set of facts. It's really important to notice he was brought on to add levity to the Justice League. I'm not defending him, but that is literally the mandate he was given for taking the job. Make it lighter and trim it down. You can't. You're very disingenuous talking about this without making a note of that. So anyway, with a visual style that combined the artificiality of a video game with the fascist aesthetic of a Leni Riefenstahl style production, Snyder's fans were every bit as ardent as Whedon's had been, but his previous effort, Batman vs Superman, had faltered at the box office and offended critics, with A.O. Scott going so far as to assert that Snyder and his corporate backers had no evident motive to produce such a joyless spectacle of power beyond their own aggrandizement, and now whose backers were concerned about how their new venture was shaping up. An early screening did not reassure them. They asked me to fix it, and I thought I could help, Whedon told me. He now regards this decision as one of the biggest regrets of his life. At first, the studio executives told Whedon his role would be restricted to writing and advising, but soon it became clear to Whedon they had lost faith in Snyder's vision and wanted him to take full control. A representative from Warner Brothers denied this. Snyder has publicly stated he left the project to spend time with his family. His daughter had died by suicide 2 months earlier. Whedon, now installed in the director's chair, oversaw nearly 40 days of reshoots, a complicated and laborious undertaking. From the start, things were tense between him and the stars. It wasn't just that he wanted to impose a whole new vision on their works, he introduced an entirely different style of management. Snyder had given the actors exceptional license with the script, encouraging them to ad-lib dialogue. Whedon expected them to say their lines exactly as he'd written them. Not really a bad ask, in fairness. I mean, you're a director, you write something, you do want them to say it. It's not a huge ask at all. So that didn't go down too well at all. One crew member told me, some actors criticised his writing. By Whedon's account, Gal Gadot, who played Wonder Woman, suggested that he, the director of the highest grossing superhero movie of the time, didn't understand how superhero movies worked. At one point, Whedon paused the shoot and, according to the crew member, announced that he had never worked with a ruder group of people. The actors fell silent. The actors, at least some of them, felt Whedon had been rude too. Ray Fisher, a young black actor, race is not important, played Cyborg. It was his first major role. Snyder had centered the film on his character, the first black superhero in a DC movie, and he treated Fisher as a writing partner, soliciting his opinions on the film's representations of black people. Whedon downsized Cyborg's role, cutting scenes that, in Fisher's view, challenged stereotypes. When Fisher raised his concerns about the revisions in a phone call, Whedon cut him off. It feels like I'm taking notes right now, Whedon told him, according to The Hollywood Reporter, and I don't like taking notes from anybody, not even Robert Downey Jr. Gadot didn't care for Whedon's style either. Last year, she told reporters Whedon threatened her and said he would make her career miserable. Whedon told me he did no such thing. I don't threaten people. Who does that? He concluded she'd misunderstood him. English is not her first language, and I tend to be annoyingly... I mean, that's nonsense, isn't it? Well, you know, she doesn't speak English. I mean, she does. Come on, behave, son. And it is interesting how, like, flippantly he sort of bats this to one side, you know, saying, it feels like I'm taking notes right now. And I don't like taking notes, not from anybody, even Robert Downey Jr. Fascinating, to be fair. But yeah, to say that Gal Gadot's English is not her first language, and I tend to be annoyingly flowery in my speech. Interesting. He recalled arguing over a scene she wanted to cut. He told her jokingly that if she wanted to get rid of it, she would have to tie him to a railroad track and do it over his dead body. Then I was told that I had said something about her dead body and tying her to the railroad track, he said. Godot did not agree with Whedon's version of events. I understand perfectly, she told New York in an email. I mean, that's like a he said, she said, but isn't that interesting? It's very, interesting stuff. As for Whedon's claim that he doesn't threaten people, an actress on Angel told me that hadn't been true back when she knew him. After her agent pushed for her to get a raise, she claims Whedon called her at home and said she was never going to work for him or 20th Century Fox again. Reading Godot's quote, she thought, wow, he's still using that line. Whedon denied this too. So there does seem to be multiple people corroborating events. That's important to state. So Justice League premiered in the fall of 2017. It was a critical and commercial debacle. Snyder's fans blamed Whedon for its failures, accusing him, as one tweet put it, of turning Snyder's godlike heroes into clowns. The power of fandom, a force Whedon had done so much to cultivate at the start of his career, was now wielded against him. The fans launched an elaborate campaign pressuring Warner Brothers to release the version Snyder had originally planned, chartering a plane to fly a banner over Warner Studios, just as Whedon had once used message boards to bond with Buffy obsessives. Snyder used the social media platform Vero to rally his followers. Sharing pictures of his morning workout alongside images that appeared to be derived from his cut of the film. Several months into the pandemic, the studio, desperate for content, announced that his cut would air on HBO Max. An online fan event celebrating the upcoming release, Snyder declared he would set the movie on fire before using a single frame he had not filmed himself. Our Lord and Saviour, Zack Snyder, someone wrote in the comments below the live stream. Around the same time, amid worldwide protests against racism, Fisher posted a series of tweets accusing Whedon of abusing his power and charging studio executives with enabling the director. In a Forbes interview, Fisher said he'd been told Whedon had used colour correction to change an actor of colour's complexion because he didn't like the actor's skin tone. Man, with everything 2020's been, that was the tipping point for me, Fisher said. Fisher did not respond to multiple interview requests from New Yorker. That's interesting. Also, it's really important to note, just as an FYI, they use colour correction on everyone's skin. Doesn't make him racist. Like, that's literally the job of an editor and colour grader. They will quite literally change everyone's skin colour. They have to. It's literally what they have to do. Like, that is par for the course. Everyone's skin gets corrected. Not really a big deal. Doesn't make it racist. It would make it racist if it was only Ray Fisher, but it wouldn't have been. That's like, you can take that to the bank as a true statement. Whedon was stunned. He'd given the whole movie a lighter look, exactly, brightening everything in. And I don't want to defend Whedon, but that's just an objective fact. Brightening everything in post-production, including all the faces. He said the claim that he had disliked the character's skin tone, which Forbes ultimately retracted, so that's funny as well, because they had to retract it, was false and unjust. Whedon says he cut down Cyborg's role for two reasons. The storyline logically made no sense, and it wasn't, I didn't like that part of the storyline, but whatever, and he felt the acting was bad. I don't think Ray Fisher's a particularly good actor. I don't think Ezra Miller's a particularly good actor. There's a lot of actors in that film that I would have cut down. But one of the main reasons I've always said, and what he should have said in this, is that I got told to cut the film down to make it tighter, and Cyborg's not as universally loved as the other characters. He even cut down the Flash. So, I mean, he literally cut down two people. It wasn't racism. Unless somehow Ezra Miller is politically black at this point. Which maybe, I'm sure someone will probably make that point. Anyway, according to a source familiar with the project, Whedon wasn't alone in feeling that way at test screenings. So this is the important thing, right? It wasn't just him. Test screenings indicated this as well. So test screenings, viewers deemed Cyborg the worst of all the characters in the film. And that's the thing, like this is a film made by committee. When they got rid of Zack Snyder and brought in Joss Whedon, the executives would have taken over massively. They would have done test screenings. They would have said, which character do you want to see more of? Which character do you want to see less of? And it would, like, this is how they do it. Anyone in the industry knows this. This is literally how they do it. So, Cyborg was deemed the worst of all the characters in the film. Despite that, Whedon insists he spent hours discussing the changes with Fisher and that their conversations were friendly and respectful. None of the claims Fisher made in the media were either true or merited discussing, Whedon told this individual. He could think of only one way to explain Fisher's motives. We're talking about a malevolent force. We're talking about a bad actor in both senses. Sick burn. Some of Whedon's defenders proposed a theory. What if Fisher had been doing Snyder's bidding? Without furnishing proof, they speculated that Snyder had tricked Fisher into thinking Whedon was racist, or maybe Fisher knew perfectly well his allegations were bullshit. Either way, the actor and director had manufactured a controversy that made Snyder seem like a progressive ally, while diverting attention from the fact that their early cut had been a disaster. Whedon's advocates believed this campaign had poisoned Carpenter against Whedon, causing her to see the complicated story of their relationship as a simplistic narrative of abuse. Once someone lights a fuse and people see there's a flame, they run to it and throw stuff into it, one person in Whedon's circle said. In our conversations, Whedon was somewhat more circumspect. I don't know who started it. I just know in whose name it was done. Okay. As you can see, like it sort of flits the line between him being you know, a bit of a abuser, but also not. It's interesting. So they don't give a fuck about feminism. So Snyder superfans were attacking him online as a bad feminist and a bad husband. They don't give a fuck about feminism. He said, "I was made a target by my ex-wife and people exploited that cynically." As he explained this theory, his voice sank into a hoarse whisper. "She put out a letter saying some bad things I'd done and saying some untrue things about me, but I had done the bad things and so people knew I was gettable." When Snyder's 4-hour cut was finally unveiled, it was critically acclaimed. His fans poured through both films to analyse the differences. Some seized on a belief first put forth by Fisher that Whedon had intentionally erased people of colour from the film. A remarkable reversal had taken place 15 years earlier. Snyder's work was widely seen as the epitome of problematic cinema. His breakout effort, 300, a sword and sandal epic about a Persian wars, was so overtly racist in the view of the UN delegation from Iran that it threatened to incite a clash of civilizations. Now the internet had recast Snyder as a progressive hero while branding Whedon its progressive hero of yesterday as a villain and a bigot. That's important to note, in fairness. That is quite interesting. The beginning of the internet raised me up and the modern internet pulled me down, Whedon said. The perfect symmetry is not lost on me. He's a poet. So yeah, I mean, interesting stuff, like genuinely interesting stuff. We get some comments about his wife and things like that. Kevin Spacey, Harvey Weinstein. There's not a lot else in here that I think is worthwhile noting. You know, I just think, in fairness, this is a bit of a defense of the man. His his statements about what happened and stuff is pretty vague, in fairness. I reckon they must have heavily edited a lot of stuff out. But it's interesting that this is the first time he's spoken out about all of this. What do you guys think? Let me know down below. I've got a video coming on the response from Ray Fisher fans, because of course I stand Ray Fisher. Fucking trended again. Oh, God. Anyway, so we're going to discuss that in a bit. But let me know what you guys think down below. If you're new here, do hit subscribe. Thank you so much. Take care.